Judas, Peter, Pilate, Caiaphas, John. These are the names most often heard in the stories that we hear during Holy Week. The men who failed Jesus, or who conspired against Jesus, their names we hear during this, the holiest of weeks. But what of the women who stood by Jesus, who wept for Jesus, who bore witness to the betrayal, the trial, the execution, and the death of Jesus? Where are their stories during this week of weeks? For centuries, the church has failed to listen to the voices of the women whose lives were intertwined with Jesus' life. The stories of these faithful women have been hidden in the mists of time. This morning, we turn to one of those women, to Mary, the mother of Jesus. Her voice has been silenced by the church. She's been confined to works of art that speak not good words. So this morning, as we enter Holy Week, we turn to two new works of art that give voice to Mary's story. Anne and I will do our best to give voice to Mary's story using the words of the Irish writer Colm Tóibín, whose book, The Testament of Mary, imagines Mary as an old woman nearing the end of her life, looking back on the life of her beloved child, Jesus. You will hear cynicism in the voice of Mary, who is visited by the men who will tell her son's story, the men who are determined to make a particular meaning out of Jesus' life and death. Mary does not share their enthusiasm for the tragedy that robbed her of her child, nor will she twist her own story to suit their needs. Mary's voice will also come to us through music. Linda Condi will perform the Confession Stone, Songs of Mary, composed by Canadian Robert Fleming, based on the poems of Owen Dodson. Owen Dodson was an African-American poet whose work is part of what has been dubbed the Harlem Renaissance. Dodson's poetry brings a lively humanity to the Mary that we have lost. And it empowers Mary and gives her voice and evokes the passion of a mother's loss. Both Owen Dodson and Colm Tóibín provide a powerful midrash of sorts with which to begin our Holy Week. We will participate in this midrash together, and then we will prepare ourselves for the celebration of the Eucharist by creating a space in which we can share our prayers. And I'm sure that Linda's performance will invite a response, but I'm going to ask that we hold our applause until after our worship, where we will offer our appreciation during the announcements. So I invite you to sit up and prepare yourselves so that together we can listen to the voice.
Of the two men who come, one was there with us until the end. There were moments then when he was soft, ready to hold me and comfort me as he is ready now to scowl impatiently when the story I tell him does not stretch to whatever limits he has ordained. Yet I can see signs of that softness still, and there are times when the glow in his eyes returns before he sighs and goes back to his work, writing out the letters one by one that make words he knows I cannot read, which recount what happened on the hill and the days before and the days that followed. I have asked him to read the words aloud to me, but he will not. I know that he has written of things that neither he saw nor I saw. I know that he has also given shape to what I lived through and he witnessed, and that he has made sure that these words will matter, that they will be listened to. I remember too much. I am like the air on a calm day as it holds itself still, letting nothing escape me. his foolishness that I had noticed first. He was waiting for me to tell him something else, and he sat opposite me, his patience slowly ebbing away, as I refused to return to the subject of his desires, the day our son was lost, and how we found him, and what was said. I cannot say the name. It will not come. Something will break in me if I say the name. So we called him in, my son, our son, the one who is here, your friend, the one you are interested in. Maybe before I die, I will say the name or manage on one of those nights to whisper it, but I do not think so. He gathered around him, I said, a group of misfits who were only children like himself, or men without fathers, or men who could not look a woman in the eye, men who were seen smiling to themselves, or who had grown old when they were still. Not one of you was normal, I said, and I watched him push his plate of half-eaten food towards me as though he were a child in a tantrum. Yes, misfits, I said. My son gathered misfits, although he himself, despite everything, was not a misfit. He could have done anything. He could have been quiet even. He had that capacity also, the one that is the rarest. He could have spent time alone with ease. He could look at a woman as though she were his equal. And he was grateful. Good-mannered, intelligent. And he used all of it, I said, so he could lead a group of men who trusted him from place to place. I have no time for misfits, I said. But if you put two of you together, you will get not only foolishness and the usual cruelty, but you will also get a desperate need for something else. Gather together misfits, I said, pushing the plate back toward him, and you will get anything at all. Fearlessness, ambition, anything. And before it dissolves or grows, it will lead to what I saw and what I live with now. All my life I have loved the Sabbath. The best time was when my son was 8 or 9, old enough to relish doing what was right without being told, old enough to remain quiet when the house was quiet. I love preparing things in advance, making sure that the house was clean, beginning 2 days before the Sabbath with the washing and dusting, and then the day before preparing the food, making sure there was enough drinking water. I love the stillness of the morning, my husband and I speaking in whispers, going to my son's bedroom to be with him, to hold his hand, hush him if he spoke too loudly, or if he forgot that this was not an ordinary day. The Sabbath mornings in our house in those years were placid mornings, hours when stillness and ease prevailed, when we looked inside ourselves and remained almost indifferent to the noise the world made or the stamp the previous day had left on us. I loved watching my husband and my son walking together to the temple, and I loved waiting behind to pray before setting out to the temple alone, not speaking, looking at no one. I loved some of the prayers and the words read from the book aloud to us. I knew them, and they came to mean soft comfort to me as I set out to walk home, having listened to them. What was strange then was that in those few hours before sundown, a sort of quiet battle went on within me between the after sound of the prayers, the peace of the day, the dull, noiseless ease of things, and something dark and disturbed, the sense that each week which passed was time lost that could not be recovered, and a sense of something else I could not name that had lurked between words of the book, as though in waiting like hunters or trappers, or a hand that was ready to wield the scythe at harvest time. The idea that time was moving, the idea that so much of the world remained mysterious, unsettled me. But I accepted it as an inevitable aspect of the day spent looking inward. I was glad nonetheless when the shadows melted into darkness at sundown, and we could talk again, and I could work in the kitchen and think once more of the others and of the world outside.
room which no one has ever sat in. Perhaps in the past the chair was in daily use somewhere, but it came through this door during a time when I needed desperately to remember some years when I knew love. It was to be left unused. It belongs to memory. It belongs to a man who will not return, whose body is dust, but who once held sway in the world. He will not come back. I keep the chair in the room because he will not come back. I do not need to keep food for him, or water, or a place in my bed, or whatever news I could gather that might interest him. I keep the chair empty. It is not much to do. And sometimes I look at it as I pass, and that is as much as I can do. Maybe it's enough. And maybe there will come a time when I will not need to have such a reminder of him so close by. Maybe the memory of him as I enter my last days will retreat into my heart more profoundly, and I will not need help from any object in the room. I knew in their roughness, their way of moving in as though they were making a raid on space, that one of them would select this chair, would make it seem casual and thus all the more difficult to oppose. I was waiting. "Do not sit in that chair," I said, when he had moved the table aside and pulled out the chair, which I had carefully trapped against the wall so that it would not be defiled by my visitors. "You can use the one beside it, but not that one." "I cannot use the chair?" he inquired, as though addressing a fool. "What else are chairs for?" "I cannot sit on a chair." The tone now was more insolent than menacing, but it had an element of menace. "No one sits on that chair," I said quietly. "No one?" he asked. I made my voice even quieter. "No one," I replied. My two visitors looked at each other. I was waiting. I did not turn away from them, and I tried to seem gentle, someone hardly worth defying, especially on what might have seemed to them like a whim, a woman's notion. "Why not?" he asked, with a sort of sweet sarcasm. "Why not?" he asked again, as though I were a child. I could hardly breathe now, and I rested my hands on the back of the chair that was nearest me, and I realized from the way my breath came and the sudden slowness in my heartbeat that it would not be long before all the life in me, the little left, would go, as a flame goes out on a mild day, easily needing only the smallest hint of wind, a sudden flicker, and then out, gone, as though it had never been alight. "Don't sit there," I said quietly. "But you must explain," he said. "The chair," I said, "is left for someone who will not return." "But he will return," he said. "No," I replied, "he will not." "Your son will return," he said. "The chair is for my husband," I replied, as if he this time were the fool. I felt content when I said the name, as though the very saying of the word husband had pulled something back into the room, or a shadow of something, enough for me in any case, but not enough for them. And then he went to sit in the chair. He turned it towards himself. He was ready to perch there with his back to me. I was waiting. Quickly I found the sharp knife, and I held it and touched the blade. I did not point it towards them, but my movement to reach for it had been so swift and sudden that I caught their attention. I glanced at them, and then looked down at the blade. "I have another one hidden," I said, "and if either of you touch the chair again, if you so much as touch it, I will wait. I am waiting now, and I will come in the night. I will move as silently as the air itself moves, and you will not have time to make a sound. Do not think for a moment I will not do this." I turned then, as though I had work to do. I washed some jugs that did not need to be washed, and then I asked them if they would get me water. I knew that they wanted to be alone with each other now, and when they had gone out, I put the chair back against the wall, and then the table against it. I knew that maybe it was time I forgot about the man I married, as I would join him soon enough. Maybe it was time to consign this chair to nothing, but I would do this on a day that was not important. I would break its spell in my own good time. When Marcus came, I was expecting him. I heard knocking for a while, and then I heard him asking a neighbor where I was. I opened the door for him. The shadows were gathering, but I did not light a lamp. It was a month or more since I had used a lamp. I offered him a chair at the table, and then some water and some fruit. I told him to tell me what he could. He said that there was only one thing he had to tell me, and I should be ready to hear the worst. He said that a decision had been made to deal with the situation. He stopped for a moment, and I thought it might be that my son would be banished or commanded not to appear in public or to speak again. But I stood up and went towards the door, and for what reason I do not know, made as though to leave the house so that I would not have to hear what he would say now. But I did not reach the door in time. He spoke flatly, firmly. He is to be crucified, he said. I turned, and I knew from his statement that there was only one question to be asked. When? Within a short time, he said, as he has moved back towards the center of power, and there are even more followers. The authorities know where he is, and they can capture him at any time. And then I found myself asking a foolish question, but a question I had to ask. Is there anything that can be done to stop this? No, he said. But you must leave here as soon as it is dawn. They will come looking for all of his followers. I am not one of his followers, I said. You must believe me when I say that they will come looking for you. You must leave. I remained standing, and I asked him what he would do. I will leave here now, but I can give you an address where you will be safe in Jerusalem. Where I will be safe, I asked. You will be safe for the moment in Jerusalem. Where is my son? Close to Jerusalem. The site for the crucifixion has been chosen. It will be near the city. If there is any chance for him, it will be there. But I have been told that there is no chance, and that there has been no chance for some time. They have been waiting. I have seen a crucifixion once, carried out by the Romans on one of their own. It was in the distance, and I remember thinking that it was the most foul and frightening image that had ever been conjured up by men. I remember thinking also that I was old and getting older, and that I hoped I would die before I ever saw anything like that again. It stayed with me, the sight in the distance, and it made me shiver, and I tried to think of another subject to obliterate the memory of this, the unspeakable image, the vast, fierce cruelty of it. But I did not know precisely how the victim died or how long it took, if they used spears or tortured them while they were hanging there, or if something else, such as the hot sun, caused the body to expire over time. Of all the things I had thought about in my life, it was the one that was furthest from me. It had nothing to do with me, and I believed that I would never witness it again or come close to it in any way. I found myself now asking Marcus how long a crucifixion takes, as though it were something surprising but ordinary. He replied, days maybe, but sometimes hours, it depends. On what, I asked. Don't ask, he said. It's better if you don't ask. He left me then, apologizing that he could not travel with me, that if anything could be done, he would need to keep his involvement with me distant and private. He advised me to wear a cloak and move carefully, and be sure as I traveled that I was not being followed. Before he left, I asked him to wait for one more minute. There was something about his briskness, his business-like way of dealing with this, that had unsettled me. How do you know all this? I asked him. I have informers, he said solemnly, almost profoundly, people who are well placed. And it has been decided? I asked. He nodded. I had a sensation that if I could think of one more question to ask, one more thing to say, the meaning would shift and soften. He waited at the door to see what I wanted to say now. Will I find him if I go to Jerusalem? I asked. At the address I have given you, he replied, they will know more than I do. I almost asked him then why I should trust someone who knew more than he did, but I watched him as he hesitated at the door, and even in the last second before he finally departed, I thought there was one more thing I should have asked or said. One more thing. But I could not think what it was. And then he went. And perhaps because there had been no one in this house for so long, he left behind a smell of pure unease. And the more I sat alone, the more I realized that for whatever reason, I should not go to the address he had given me, that I would return to Canaan, to Miriam, and then I would find Martha and Mary, and I would ask them what to do. to the old men in the temple, they have given up. Tell them what you told me, cast the sinners out, clean the house of God, load the rich with grief, prepare the poor with hope, and Jesus. Don't stop to play with Judas and his friends along the way. Jesus, did you know that Lazarus is back? Jesus, are you listening? Lazarus has come back. His grave is still open, and Martha tells she heard three angels singing with free birds. Their feathers brushed together. Jesus, are you hearing? Lazarus has returned to Bethany. Jesus, won't you answer? Lazarus has come back and he's calling for you. He says that death was gentle and woe came up early. Jesus, are you praying? Lazarus has returned. There's a supper in Jerusalem tonight, and I wish that I was there. I'd journey anywhere to be with Jesus, to stroke his hair. Remind him of my baby dear. I'd journey anywhere to be with Jesus tonight. There's that supper in Jerusalem tonight, and I could be right there, but I don't dare to journey to Jerusalem tonight. Oh, my Jesus, you're eating in Jerusalem tonight, and I wish that I was there. Oh, my boy, take care. At that supper in Jerusalem tonight. trembling arms. Save him, I received the silver from Judas. Help him, your word is all my world. I'll receive the silver from Judas' hand and spend it on nothing. Save him, Jehovah, help him, my God, bless him, my Lord, redeem him, my husband, oh, save him, save him, save him, save our Lord. Bring me those needles, Martha. I believe I'll knit Jesus a scarf. Go on, snapping those butterbeans. What time is it? Let me see now. Knit one. You say it's 12 o'clock. Snapping those for Joseph and Lazarus. They'll be gone before we're through. Martha, what time is it? Pearl 2, pearl 1, knit 1, pearl 2. If I had the star of Bethlehem, I'd knit 3 and light his sky. Where was I, Martha? Oh yes, knit 1, pearl 7. What time is it, Martha? Knit 3, pearl 10. It can't be near 3 o'clock. Where was I? Knit pearl 12, pearl nothing. Martha, don't leave me alone. Where are you, Martha? Martha, where are you, Martha? Martha! Everything is black. There, water, sun, moon, all night, dirt is black. Is it morning for our son? The earth is dead. It will rise again, Almighty God. Now I understand what light is. It is our son. It is Jesus, no longer trembling in my arms. let me rise up into your starry sky and love us and praise thee and praise thee. Comfort me in paradise. Rock on my breast, my first and only one, my first and only son. Oh, my Jesus, my first and only born of God and born His Son, bright my only one. Oh, my Jesus, rest on my breast, my first and only son. Oh, my boy Jesus, rest. You need rest. Miriam had already heard rumors, and I could see by the fear in her eyes when I arrived that she did not want to tell me what they were. I told her that I knew, and that is why I had come. But she still seemed uneasy. She did not move beyond the hallway of the house and left the door ajar while I stood there. And it struck me then that she was not going to allow me beyond where she stood, that she was in fact blocking my entrance. What do you know? I asked. I know, she said, that they are rounding up all his friends and followers. Are you afraid? Would you not be? Do you want me to leave? She did not flinch. Yes, I do. Now? She nodded. And whatever it was about the expression on her face and her posture and the aura she gave off, I knew in that split second more than I had known before. I knew that I was facing something ferocious and exact, something dark and evil beyond anyone's comprehension. I expected to be taken there and then at the door, dragged away somewhere, never to be seen in the world again. I understood everything then, and I almost cried aloud, except that I was sure that Miriam would have done something to stop me. Instead, I thanked her and turned. I knew that I would not see her again in my life, and I made my way to the house of Martha and Mary, and I was ready to be turned away by them too. They were waiting for me. Their brother lay again in the darkened room and could not speak. His sleep was peppered with moans and cries. Martha said his howls in the hour before dawn harrowed up the soul of anyone who heard them. I told Martha and Mary of Marcus's visit and what had happened in the house of my cousin Miriam. I explained that I may even have been watched and followed, and that I was ready to walk out of their house without delay. They told me that they also believed that their house was watched, and that one of them would have to stay. But they had already decided that if I came to them looking for help, then Mary would accompany me to Jerusalem. We would both slip away under the cover of night. Even if we were followed, there was nothing we could do except work out a way to evade our followers. And then I saw the difference between the two sisters, as Martha told me that she knew he was to be judged by Pilate, and that he was to be offered to the multitude to see if they wanted his release. But instructions had been issued by the elders, she said, so it would mean nothing. Both the Romans and the elders wanted him dead, but both were afraid to declare this openly. Mary argued that something new would happen, which would make such judgments and predictions meaningless, that the world's time had come, and these days would be the last days, and the days of the beginning. As she spoke, I dreamed of us escaping somewhere to anywhere. I dreamed of taking my son through the crowd, him meek, humble, and oddly afraid, moving carefully, his eyes cast down, his followers all dispersed. But the temple had the people in the square. Martha insisted again. They had ordered them to call for the release instead of the thief Barabbas, and the people would do what they had been told to do. My son would not be freed. He is already in custody, Martha said, and it is already determined what should be done with him. They both watched me now, afraid to say the word that had not been uttered yet. You mean he will be crucified? I asked. Yes, Martha said, yes. And then Mary spoke. But that will be the beginning of what? I asked. Of a new life for the world, she said. Martha and I ignored her. Is there anything that can be done? I asked Martha. Both of them appeared perplexed now, and Martha nodded in the direction of the room where Lazarus lay. Ask my brother. My sister is right. We are coming to the end of the world, she said, or the world as we know it is coming to an end. Anything can happen. You must go to Jerusalem.